Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regular board meeting of Wednesday, April 24th, 2019. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask for if there's anybody in the audience who would like to... Oh, roll call. Okay, well, after roll call. Okay. Would you please take the roll?
Yes. Director Anderson?
Yes.
Director Radder?
Yes, here.
Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Cicada? Here. President Thomas?
I am here, perhaps. But, anyway, now we can go to public comment. If there's anyone in the public who would like to address the board, you can do that at this time on a non-agendized item. Yes, sir.
Non-agendized, right?
Yes.
Okay. Kirk Smith from West Point. We had the pleasure of having a town hall the other day that your staff and Director Cicada attended, and just wanted to tell you how important that was. When people get like taste problems and things like that, I think the worst. When your people show up and kind of go into what's going on, you know, that you can get some taste issues with the non-public health. That stuff goes a long way. It really helps. So, just want to say thanks.
Well, that's
Thanks for pointing that out.
very refreshing comments, and we are trying to improve our public outreach.
In the long-term sense, I've been up there for many years, and I also want this agency to know that of all the agencies that serve that area, this one has probably been more responsible for the quality of life of them. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Could you say that again, please?
You know, think about it. You know, you went the extra mile to get the HUD grants and things like that help try and keep costs down, and then live up to the standards that you have to today for water quality and the like, and fire flow standards and the like. And all that takes engineering, determination to reach high standards, and you did it. You deserve a lot of praise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, could you get his contact information so the next time we have a rate hike, he can be our...
Already got that noted. Already got that
good.
noted. Can I just follow up on that real quick?
Sure.
I just want to acknowledge Damon as he's walking out the door, because he's the one really that did the presentation at that town hall meeting. Director Cicada was there, and I expected, to hear from the community, because there was some understandable frustration. I think Damon did such a great job presenting that we only got a few, mild questions, because I think he addressed all of the concerns in the way that he handled it. So I just wanted to acknowledge Damon for handling it remarkably well.
You could watch the tape later.
Yeah,
and hear
that's
the
just
good-
what I was
the good
thinking.
words.
All that makes
Well, we wouldn't want him to get a big header.
Right,
so
right.
it's
No,
okay.
keep him in his place.
All right, seeing no further public comments, let's move on to the consent agenda. We have item 3A, approval of the minutes of the board meeting of March 13th, 2019.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
3A and 3B, right?
Correct.
There's two.
That's all there is.
Okay, I'm sorry. 3A and 3B, we have a motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Radder?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes. Okay, that motion or that item is passed. Going on to new business, under 4A, we have a review and direction of the fiscal year 2018-19 third quarter investment report. We have Jeff Meyer. It looks like Patty's making this. Okay. Good to see you.
Good afternoon. I have a handout for you. This accompanies the agenda item.
Thank you. Is there any difference, Patty, in this one than the one that's in the packet?
I didn't see it in the package.
Oh, this?
Oh, you did get one. Okay. I looked online and I didn't see it.
Oh, okay, okay, but it's the same. Okay, good.
This is the quarterly investment report for the months of January, February, and March 2019. During the first quarter of 2019, we did have a change in the LAIF, an increase of almost $2.2 million. And that was due to the property tax disbursement, number one, that we always get in the first quarter. And we also have investment earnings of $170,000, mostly made up of the LAIF. That's where the majority of our funds are invested. And the financial considerations, just a few things in there that I was going to bring up. The Federal Open Market Committee, they decided to maintain the federal funds target range to between 2.25% and 2.5%. And right now it's currently at 2.44%, which is kind of on the high side, but they're working to keep it below the 2.5 target range. The national unemployment rate remains low at 3.7%, and the Dow, NASDAQ, and S&P markets rose steadily during the quarter, and they all closed with gains. The LAIF daily interest rate, it's marginally increasing. It hasn't really increased very much over the past 3 months, and it closed at 2.44% on March 31st. And that's all I really have. If you have any questions.
Yes. We have, for as long as I can remember, we've kept our money in LAIF because we felt that was, you know, it gave us slide, safety, yield and liquidity, safety, liquidity and yield. And so that's been the overbearing
That's
mandate for us, right?
Yes, that's where we earn the most interest at this time.
Right, right.
We are always looking at other investment opportunities, but right now, LAIF seems to be our best bet.
How much work has been done on looking for an investment counselor?
There's been some outreach. Mr. Meyer has done some outreach, but he's really busy with the budget right now.
Right,
So that's kind of taken a back burner.
okay.
Okay. Patty, this is bordering on a ludicrous statement, but somebody in the public might look at this report and say, well, why don't you put more money in the Lehman Brothers account because it's making almost 4%. So can you explain why that's not a good idea?
The Lehman Brothers defaulted.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted her to have that on the tape, so.
Yeah, they default, and actually I was going to bring that up. They, we usually get a distribution in April on that. We have almost $28,000 in market value left on that. And we usually get a distribution in April and October. And we won't know until May when we get our statement from Wells Fargo if we've actually received a distribution or not.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this?
Move for acceptance.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept this report. Would you please poll? Okay. Public comment on this? See, I could sense that there was not going to be any public comment.
I could too.
Anyway, would you please poll the board?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Radovan?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Sakina?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes. Okay.
President Thomas, if I might make I hate to interrupt the agenda. There's somebody here that wanted to make a comment during public comment that I think we got so excited about the first one that we might have moved on. And I promise it's good news. but there's a representative here from JPIA, if it's okay with you to make a quick comment.
Do you want to let him do that?
I think so.
Please come forward.
All right, well, thank you, Michael. So I'm David DiMaria, I'm from the JPI, so we provide workers' comp, liability, property insurance for your organization. And by the way, you guys are one of our founding districts. I think we had 79 founding districts, so you guys have been with us from the very beginning. We're celebrating 40 years this year, so if you happen to be at the AQUA conference, either one of them this year, you'll see a theme from us on celebrating our 40 years. You know, there's a story that goes, the last Summer Olympics, the Nigerians, they didn't bring back any medals from Brazil. They weren't able to win any. And so the Nigerian minister of the Olympic team was so upset about it, he offered to give refunds to all the people. And he said, sure, just give me your PIN number, your bank account, and we'll take care of that. And needless to say, that's what I'm here for, is to give you a refund, but I don't need your PIN number. I've got a check. And I'll talk about why I have that check. So, you know, the JPI is essentially a partnership among water districts throughout the state that pool their monies together, and in doing so, they share that risk, and when they all do well, we tend to beat the numbers. I would say in our programs, usually about 7 to 8 times 10 years, our numbers end up being, our claims experience ends up being less than what the initial prediction was by the actuary. And by the way, the actuary is trying to be spot on 50% right, wrong. And that's really a reflection of the members, such as you guys. If it's not for the practices of the staff that they employ on a daily basis, being safety conscious in all things that they do, this wouldn't happen. Because if you weren't, we'd have higher claims. With the higher claims, we have less money to refund to you. And so that's why we beat the numbers. Here's some examples for you of some of the things that really that your staff are doing. There were 6 training classes held here in the last year by the district. Some examples of those classes include traffic control and flagger, fall protection, asbestos, cement pipe initial training, and defensive driver training. Some other examples, we have the software that your members, your employees can log into. It's called Target Safety, where it has a bunch of different classes. There are 55 registered users here from your district, and 55 completed courses. Imagine how many percent. We also have what's called a professional development program, where it's a series of classes. You take those classes, you eventually get a plaque, and you have currently 12 people in that program. 38, I'm sorry, you have 38 people participating in that program. I looked at the wrong line. And really, I'd just like to, I'd like to give you this refund. Do we have a pen? I should sign this check. Just kidding.
Well, how are we going to cash it? That's an old trick, giving a check out and not signing it.
If we could maybe get a picture, it'd be great. I'll present this check to you guys.
Well, how much is it?
Oh, yeah, $1, no. 90,000.
Wow.
They're all too slow, just let me have a check. Everybody tickle your phone?
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I was working That's right here in the middle. Right under the check. Have something rather than say something.
Who's taller? You get in there. Who's taller?
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Let me get one with this one. Once again, one of those moments where people have nothing to do with it take all the credit. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
You know, it should be.
Why do we have
Maybe we'll get that one out.
Come get in here and photobomb it.
Got it.
And well, on this subject, I work for Farmers Insurance Company, and we take premiums from people all day long, and we never, ever write a check for a return of premium for $90,000 to any of our customers.
Well, it's not agenda, so we can't do it too much. I'm sure you can pass that.
So what kind of a hole in our budget can we fill with that?
Russ, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Yeah, let's buy a vehicle.
How much do we pay annually for insurance?
Well,
Just curious. Maddie,
It's-
you know there?
Insurance,
the annual premium.
70,000.
Great.
That's pretty good.
170.
Well, thank you, we appreciate you coming. Thank you very much.
Hey, so is that a
Feel free
combination, combination of premium on workers' comp, property liability, or all?
Three of those programs.
Okay, great.
That's good. Thank you
Yeah, that's
for
really
that.
nice, thank you. Thank you, employees.
You gave them the PIN number, Patty?
Okay, if we can move on to item 4B, this is a discussion and direction approving an agreement for auditing services. And looks like Patty's going to be making this presentation as well. Thank you.
Hard to follow up for $90,000. Okay, this is the three-year agreement with Richardson and Company for auditing services has expired as of June 30th, 2018. The district's financial audit policy that was adopted in January allows for a 2-year extension. Staff is asking the board to approve a 1-year extension at a cost of $36,700 with the option for a second and final year for fiscal year 1920. Richardson and Company's fee proposal is attached and looks very reasonable. The fee proposal itself is pretty straightforward and very doable. On the last page, the cost proposal covers the different areas of the audit that they performed. And that's the financial statements, the state controller's report, certificate of debt coverage, public financing authority, the GASB 75 fee, which is the post-employment benefits, and the single audit. And this past year, 17-18, the actual amount was $34,800, and the proposed fees for 18-19 is $36,700, which is very reasonable. There will be an additional fee for the GASB 68 reporting, and that's the pension reporting. And that's $1,500. Also, again, very reasonable. Richardson and Company does a very good job. They're very professional. They're based out of Sacramento, and they've been very easy to work with. And do you have any questions?
Any questions?
On, there, it says, if there's changes, significant changes to closing entries and a couple other little changes, do we expect anything like that?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
There's
There's more than
always-
37,000.
Yeah, it could be maybe a couple $1,000s more. There usually are things that come up during the audit that require additional work. Hopefully it won't be. We had the PFA, the Public Financing Authority. This is the third year, so we've gotten it down pretty well with the closing of that now.
With other auditing companies, Did you run into that same problem, that there was additional charges for this type of work?
We didn't have, when we had Brian Jolly, the previous auditor, they had a flat fee as well, and we didn't have the PFA, and we didn't have the GASB 68 reporting. So things have changed significantly in the past couple of years.
So, do I understand that any recommendation that was made as a result of the last audit, we've taken care of?
Yes.
Well, we've taken care of the ones that we could. There was recommendations that they made that weren't, weren't possible because of the size of the district and the amount of people they had working in each area.
Yes, some of the payroll audit, double checking, one
Right.
employee entering something and another confirming it.
Right.
Through the computer itself, the computer program does not allow that to happen. So to the best of our ability, we do our own internal controls.
No, and Mr. Myers has addressed that. We asked that question after the last financial audit, and that was the answer we got then. But to the extent that we could, and that's great about this firm, they've been doing this for 3 years in a row, and they've provided, I think, more recommendations for change and
Right, I remember that
than
from
Jolly
Brian
had.
Jolly.
Yeah, previously.
Yes,
I'd like to move for acceptance of this item.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Okay, if not, Rebecca, would you poll the board?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Radigan?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada? Yes. President Thomas?
Yes. Okay, thank you, Patty. Okay, moving on to item 4C. We have discussion and action regarding the adoption of the fiscal year 2019-25 year capital improvement CIP program. Good afternoon.
So I'll just jump right into this. I've, got in your agenda item, there should have been there should be the two tables, table A and table B for the water and wastewater segment. I can go through the brief presentation if you like, or summary, or you just want to jump right to any questions you may have. Any preference there?
Well, just remembering, we had talked for several years about the consolidation with West Point.
That's what I was
Yeah,
wondering.
yeah.
I don't see anything there.
Well,
Did
there's-
you have grants?
Yeah, you're there on,
Well, we
under.
still don't have the loan to debt ratio, right?
So we don't have it officially resolved yet. We just recently received some what we think is positive feedback from the water board, so we're hoping that we will have that issue nailed down. The water board's taken a long time with that, but basically they're doing a very extensive credit check on us, and we're still waiting for the final results of that.
And if that grant did get approved, we can move forward with the project without stating so in this,
We would come back to the board and amend it.
Well, be sure to send the water board a picture of that check.
Absolutely.
Change everything.
So, yeah, I mean, I can briefly explain how this 5-year program is intended to work. There's a couple of features of it that I would like to highlight. One is under the other various, towards the lower half of the table A for the water segment. We have an AMR radio meter program that we're going to be going to USDA with an application to get a grant loan to move forward with that. And then also the tank management program. I've just gone ahead and annualized the cost for that as an ongoing cost to maintain our steel tanks. And then as far as we have a list of distribution, treatment, and electrical rehab projects there for operations and maintenance and engineering department staff to team together on.
to, sometimes priorities of the operation maintenance department are different than some of these larger capital projects we're looking at. So the idea is to provide a little bit of flexibility for them to complete those projects.
I just had a question on the redwood tanks. We're going to go through another fire season.
Right.
And I thought that, our chances of getting something.
That's another project that we've recently gotten some feedback on that was fairly positive, so I think we should hear something from Cal OES and FEMA in the near future on that.
Because you do have it, planning in June, 19 and.
Right, so part of that is really don't want to start to expend a lot of funds until we get the official notice. And even after that, I have to go through an initial planning effort during the first 9 to 12 months to do all the engineering effort associated with that. But the idea is that because we've done this before in the past, that this time around it should be a little more streamlined and go a little bit quicker than it did last time around.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, we have 8?
There may be district-wide throughout, up in its past, we targeted, I believe, five redwood tanks. The majority of them are.
Right, but there are some in,
2 in
There's one in
Copperopolis.
Copper, I know of, and that may be, then there's one in Timber Trails that was not part of that application either. So I'm not sure where the other, and then we have tank 3 in Big Trees that was.
in the park.
That one, we've been talking about just decommissioning it. It's not really an essential part of our distribution system.
So primarily they're up in Ebbets Pass.
Primarily, yes.
Okay.
And so this year's, construction projects include Reach One, the Tech-I pipeline project's going out to bid. The bid opening's on May 8th. And then, so those projects we'll see what the bids come in, but I'll come back to the board soon thereafter in May or June, early June, with an agenda item for that, for the Tech-I line. And then the following, after that, then the planning priorities will be for the AD transmission pipeline in Jenny and for a backup filter in West Point, and which we would start the design effort in the following year.
Charles, I have a question about that Techite pipeline
Yeah.
replacement. If it's going to bid on May 8th, you certainly, logical to think that you've got the bidders list. I'm just curious about whether Mozingo is going after that project too.
They are one of the plan holders.
Okay.
I never quite know who's going to show up on the actual bid opening date, but
Yeah.
We have four plan holders at this point. So
Mm.
we'll, it kind of depends on who shows up on the bid opening date and how competitive the bid is. And
Well, the reason that comes to my mind is that how far removed distance-wise is the Reach One from the Techite work? Is it close?
About 30 miles.
Is it 30 miles? That far apart? Okay.
Avery to Dorrington.
Techite is
Okay.
off of Miko on
Okay.
Highway 4, and the other is down in,
yeah, so it's, Mozingo is operating in that area right now,
Mhm.
so it would be convenient for them. They're also doing work for Blue Lake Springs
Yeah.
right now, so they're pretty well mobilized up there.
So,
And a lot of their workers are
local.
local, some live in Arnold.
okay. All right, well, that was just something that crossed my mind.
Good question.
I have a question on your auto read meters.
Read this stuff.
Yeah.
And so this will be
Microscope.
countywide.
That's for the entire county, yeah. So originally, as you know, we were planning on slowly, starting with West Point and then slowly implementing it over time. But we contacted USDA and they said they had funds available, if we can get our application submitted. It's not, there is some grant, the main benefit is there is a grant element that would come along with the loan. So we would be able to save a few dollars.
Is that Jenny Lynn water plant pretreatment, is it almost done?
It is, we should be done in the next couple of months, except for, programming and startup and all that. Initially, effort to get the facility up and running.
As long as they don't find any more bones. So.
Yeah.
If I might, President Thomas, make a quick comment on the asterisks is something that I asked Charles to add, and I just want to make sure the board understands what we did there, because really those, where you see that, those projects are areas where we have not yet identified funding. We don't have it in our reserves currently, but I wanted this to reflect the fact that we know that those projects are priorities, and we're going to be, as staff, we'll be trying to find the resources for us to implement those projects. But I didn't want the expectation to be that all that was going to get done, because where you see that asterisk, the project's not funded. And so whether it's, and that's true on the water and the wastewater side, we'll be looking for grant funding, financing, whether it's Section 219 money or USDA, wherever we can find it, we'll be looking for the resources to implement those projects, but it's not currently, those projects aren't currently funded.
Where are we in the grant process for the AMR radio meter?
Just now preparing the application, I believe.
Yeah, we have basically about a month or a month and a half to pull it together. So it's something, as soon as I'm finished with the CIP, that's next on my plate. So.
Okay, cool.
Very good.
Do you need a motion on this?
Yes.
Move for acceptance of our capital improvement program?
Second. Go ahead.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this item? If not, Rebecca, would you poll the board?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Ratterman?
Yes.
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes. All right, that motion is taken care of, so going on to,
I do have a question on the sewer. We hardly got a chance to take a look at it, but on the lift stations 15 and 16 in Copper Cove, what kind of funding are we looking for there? It's got the asterisk. Is that a grant application for that also, or are we just shifting around funds?
That would not be a grant application. So, basically, I know we've said we're going to do a project out there, and we still are. The priority is really 6-8 and the force main that go into the lake. And when we originally went out for the request for proposal for design, the intent was to have two separate bid schedules, one for that project and then one for the 15 and 18 project. Put it out to bid, see what prices we get from the contractors, and then based on that information, decide if we have what we can proceed with. But definitely we're going to be proceeding with the 6-8 and force main bypass project.
But are we still doing planning, design, and environmental right now?
Yes.
For the 15 and 18?
Correct.
Okay, but the project itself could be put aside a lot longer than 6-8 and the force main.
Right, and some of this depends on, how things, if, the pricing that we get, like we're gonna proceed with the Arnold secondary clarifier and leach field improvements. Some of it depends on, different funding sources for different projects throughout the entire sewer program, so, it just kind of depends on how those funds become available.
Okay, all right, thanks. I'm going to slow you down.
oh, don't worry about it, that's fine. Okay, let's move on to item 4D. This is discussion and an action regarding approval of professional services agreement for the Ebbets Pass Reach 1 pipeline replacement project.
So just to give a timeline on this, so we did put out a formal RFP in 2017, and we obtained numerous proposals from several consulting firms. And we selected Castle based on that, came to the board with an award for the design contract. So, and then Castle proceeded with the design from April 2017 through September 2018. That effort included all the environmental permits and encroachment permits. And then just in October, we started the bid period for construction, and that went through. There was a bid opening in February 2019. We came to the board for the construction contract for Mazingo in March. And so here we are now, we're asking for a professional service agreement with Castle to continue their engineering support of the project and to provide construction management and resident engineering services. And also, there's another portion of their work to provide construction staking. And then, so the construction phase would go from this May all the way into 2020. And so this is just, this was in the agenda packet, this is just a summary of the level of effort and cost for those construction management and resident engineering services. And then also to provide the construction staking was another $27,750, so it's a $241,450 contract. So
And they would be involved for the entire project through the September, or I think it was September 2020 was what it said?
yes.
This is for the, okay. Move for acceptance?
Can I ask
Yeah,
a question
go ahead.
first? So, looking at this, we have a proposal for $213,700 for the project construction management, which includes several things listed on 3. And then an additional $27,750 for the staking and engineering. Is it, I'm gonna ask a couple of questions, and you can roll them in and answer them however you want to. I'm just wondering, is there anything that staff can do, and that is not engineering related, but project construction management? And the other thing is looking at, you want a resident engineer for field services, $112,000. What types of, give me examples of what types of situations would come up during the project that would require an engineer and not perhaps someone like our operations manager that could oversee to kind of break down some of the cost instead of just handing it over?
Right there, well, I think, you know, I'm gonna be involved in regardless, Damon's gonna be involved regardless. So this is just really to try to cut down on that burden on, you know, our own staff, because they're trying to do their own jobs. So we had a meeting this morning trying to have an initial discussion about these kind of impacts to, you know, our own field crews up there and resources and pulling them away from other duties and responsibilities. So the idea here is to try to limit those impacts so that those staff members can do other business for the district.
The cost breakdown is for, and I'm really kind of looking at resident engineering.
Right.
Is that like, we're gonna pay that regardless, or that's what it could go based on the hours they've listed?
It's hourly, yeah, it's an hourly.
So we may not get to this full 213,000, just depends on if there's issues that come up that would require additional engineering support.
Well, it's intended to be that they're going to be going out to the project site several times a week. And that's something that, you know, it's all within Caltrans right away, so Caltrans, they're gonna want somebody, an engineer on site that, you know, our inspectors they're not really geared towards, you know, Caltrans calls up with a question about what's going on, you know,
that's what the resident engineer there is to explain, you know,
Well,
and address those questions.
MSD just finished a good-sized project on Highway 4 with Caltrans, and they had issued us a personal Caltrans representative, and we did use Mazingo, and their staff worked really well with our staff and Caltrans. So it didn't seem, it doesn't seem to me like we need an engineer there all the time standing there. And can you give me an example of what type of inspection that you would be having? Somebody certifying some kind of pressurizing, and why couldn't our inspectors, if in fact we have inspectors, maybe we don't.
Our inspectors will be there full-time every single day, almost every hour of the day that Mazinga's on site. The idea, yeah, so they'll be watching, you know, every bit of that pipe going in the trench and the backfilling, and they'll be calling up the geotech consultant. And so the resident engineer is more or less there to, you know, provide the engineering aspect of it, to if any questions come up about.
If any questions come up.
Right, and.
But everything should be on the plans anyway. I just,
Yeah.
we can cut it down at all, I think, why not, and then just, if they need to come in, but if this is something that CCWD always does, then, perhaps.
This, we don't always do this, we didn't do this, we did not do this on the Reach 3A
Yeah,
project.
right.
So
We-
what happened to that?
Sorry, go ahead.
Was there something that happened on that 3A that maybe you thought this would be better to do it this way?
I'm just more or less thinking about, you know, where, you know, my time and where I can, because it probably, I live right up there, so, I mean, I'm gonna be up there anyways regardless, but you know, if I can have, the Jack Strauss will be available to work with the resident engineer, and I believe them teaming up, they'll be able to handle this project without too much assistance from me, which will free up my time to, you know, focus on some of these other projects.
Does this have the total, what's the total project cost of this project?
6.7 million.
Is the,
So it's a couple $100,000 for project management of a $6 million project?
Right,
That's well within reason.
yeah, and we talked about this issue. Charles and I talked about it. Really, what it came down to for me was this: without this resident engineer, it would pretty much be a full-time job for Charles, and we're already stretched thin on engineers. So basically, what would happen is, you know, Techite might get delayed. Other things that we know we need to get done aren't going to happen on the time that in the time frame that we want them to happen, because Charles's time would be out of the office. We know we have a lot of work that we need the engineering department to get done, which is why we're hiring another engineer. So it seemed like considering the resource constraints, this was a reasonable option.
Is any of this project being paid with a grant though?
No.
And can I try to understand, and I think I'm following what Cindy's saying, because, you know, when you talk about a resident engineer, what they're gonna be doing is, you know, digging up the dirt and then laying the pipe in there.
he's not, the resident engineer will not be there full-time, he's just gonna be there a maximum of 20 hours a week or less.
Oh, well, okay, but he's very well paid then.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think it's more of an issue of you know, having, you know, since Caltrans is gonna be, you know, it's within their, it's
in their right,
Caltrans.
right.
I think that they're going to want someone that's up there that's gonna be able to explain what's going on the project site, to have all the information when they ask questions. And so that's just having somebody that can be there on a daily basis and keep tabs of the whole project.
Correct me if I'm wrong too, is that the resident engineer can also provide feedback on RFIs for the project. So
Yeah.
say if the contractor says, hey, we can't get a hold of this type of concrete, does this type of concrete meet your specification for what's the word I'm looking for?
Thrust block or
Thrust
something.
blocks or for kickers, that engineer will have the expertise and the certification to say absolutely, and project rolling, and he's not having to manage with a microscope.
And the county won't be involved in
No.
anything because it's not a county road.
Any other questions? I really hate to beat this to death, but I'm still taking rolaids over the issue that Castle came in with a $5 million estimate on a $6.7 million bid. So it will not, I don't know what kind of ramifications there would be, but if they sandbag this thing too on this, if this inflates up to $250,000 or something on their construction management, it will not make me happy.
Can we do something like that says, have them, that's the limit, if they go over, that's on them?
Well, that's a change order, right? Or is a change order just good? Yeah.
Then you have to fill in.
We gotta understand the state of what's in the ground. Nobody really knows what's in the ground. You know, they don't really know the soil conditions, they don't know, you know, if the pipes are everywhere they say they are, they're not, you know, this is not you can't see it, so you can imagine, and it's old. So nobody really knows what's in there. We know what we're gonna put back in there, but we don't know what's there. And what these guys are gonna be able to do, hopefully, and I agree that they should do it in a reasonable manner cost-wise, but they're gonna keep him out of the loop and make decisions to keep the project rolling so it'll get done on time and on budget. You know, that's their job. And Charles will be, you know, the one that has to oversee them, and there is a check and balance where he does have to stand them up every once in a while and make sure that they are on schedule, and if not, why. And, you know, I'd rather have him putting the pressure on this guy and this guy putting the pressure on everybody else than having him out there all the time. And then the next round of projects, we're not gonna get rolling for another year. It's just, you know, we don't have the manpower to do all these projects and run the daily operations of the district. And we don't wanna hire that many people either.
You know, like I said, MSD just finished their project, and we came into that problem. We didn't have a rock clause, which we probably still won't do. But our staff in Mazingo, it wasn't rocket science to figure out that, okay, we'll go ahead and do a change order and jackhammer and make the gravity flow pipe be straight instead of like this, like it was. And I just don't know why we need to have a resident principal engineer. Perhaps if we just say that a little bit not so that the principal can step in on a, you know, to really have an issue, and I would assume you're gonna be involved also. But,
Yeah, I think it's an issue of you have to be, you know, we have our inspectors, they can call you on the phone and tell you what's going on, but, you know, you kind of have that engineering mind, and you have to go out to the site and, you know, walk the site and look at things and kind of say, uh-oh, this is a problem, or, you know.
but I also think the staff that works with the maintenance of the pipe, and they do know a little bit more, and the two staff that I had on our job who were not engineers, and the construction foreman were not engineers. They know how to make the right call, and if they don't, then they pick up the phone to the engineer. If you're expecting a lot of problems and you feel that you need that engineer on staff because this is gonna be a nightmare job, then perhaps, you know, that's there. But I just, me personally, I feel that, I don't know if it's, you know, $214,000 to have somebody there just in case we need that. But
I have
It's
a
not
couple
just my
of, comments here, and Charles is talking about not knowing, and Jeff brought this up. I mean, they've been up on the pipe. I mean, they're up on the pipe all the time, but in isolated places, they don't know what kind of pipe is there. And so that's going to be, you know, one of the big things. Another thing that we might say about the resident engineer, if at the beginning, we're getting a lot of charges against the resident engineer, something's wrong, right?
Well, I mean, the intent is that that the resident engineer is up there and
Right.
keeping tabs on what's going on in the project. I mean, you know, the problem is if, you know, you don't have a resident engineer, they're working with the contractor, the contractors, you know, they make their own decisions, you know, and maybe those are, you know, you have a set of plans and specs, but sometimes just practical things aren't necessarily in the plans and specs. And so, you know, it has to be kind of negotiated between the engineer and the contractor, you know, how to do this, you know, will it impact people on the highway, you know, adversely, is there a safety risk? So, you know, just, there's a lot of decision-making along the process that has to happen.
Yeah, so my point is, you're going to be looking at the charges that are gonna be coming, being charged to resident engineer. If after a couple of months, you know, half of this money is gone, then you know.
It should be, I mean,
Yeah.
they have a set duration, I think they said 36 weeks, you know, that we shut down in the winter months, because Caltrans, I'm sure, doesn't want us out there after December 1. So, you know, and I will be going out, I still will be going out there, you know, periodically, maybe once a week, and yeah, I'll be communicating with Castle on what's going on. But the idea is to just, you know, we do have a lot of other important
Right.
priorities.
No,
and
I understand.
My hope is that, you know, I can shift to those and focus on those.
Okay, Jeff, when you were talking before, that sounded an awful lot like a motion to me.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we,
Well, I already did.
okay, second.
You did?
I already did, I moved for acceptance.
And who
Right
seconded?
before Cindy's, no one had yet.
Oh.
I will.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second has been made on this proposal. Is there any public comment on this? If not, would you please poll the board?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Letterman?
Yes?
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada? President Thomas?
It's okay to say no.
Yes.
What did Cindy say?
Hey, she said easy.
And I didn't hear you, Cindy, I didn't hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks.
Okay, looks like that we are down to 4E. This is discussion and direction. Adopting district policy number 23, vehicle replacement policy. So Damon, you should come back up.
Good afternoon, President Thomas, directors. So there was a vehicle fleet presentation provided to the board in October of 2018 that spurred a deeper dive into the overall vehicle replacement policy. The current vehicle replacement policy was adopted by resolution in 2003. Based on that presentation last year, it was recognized by the district that there needs to be an updated or slash replacement to the policy. And so what you guys have to do is that replacement. So this was first brought to the Finance Committee in November of 2018, and it has gone through multiple revisions since, most recently, I believe last week on the 16th, when some recommendations were made and then incorporated into this draft. Some of those revisions include the lease to own option, delineating purchase parameters, which is on page 2 of the document, differentiating between heavy equipment and small vehicles meet purchase criteria, amongst a whole host of other things. So really, ultimately, staff's recommendation is that the board go ahead and rescind the existing vehicle and equipment replacement purchasing policy, which is resolution 2003-61, and then go ahead and adopt this policy number 23.
I'll move.
Second?
Okay, that was quick. We have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this? If not, Rebecca, would you please poll the board?
Director Underhill?
Yes.
Director Letterman?
Yes?
Director Davidson?
Yes.
Director Cicada?
Yes.
President Thomas?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we have an item 4F, discussion regarding consideration of a change of date, or change to the date and time of the Board of Directors meeting schedule.
So two issues here. One is the board meetings in May, and the other is the time of day that the board meets. Staff's recommendation, because of the fact that many of the board members and several of the members of the management team will be at the Spring Aqua Conference the first week in May, that we move the first board meeting in May to May 15th. And then we have a second board meeting in May on May 29th. And at the last meeting, we talked about it, and we were just gonna cancel the first one and have the second board meeting. That second board meeting is budget adoption, budget, review of the budget. That'll be Jeff's presentation of the budget. And we felt like we were adding quite a bit to that second agenda. And so we recommend having a meeting on the 15th and a second meeting on the 29th.
I have on the 15th, it's IRWM, but if we wanted to make that meeting start at, say, 9 o'clock in the morning, if they had a JPA meeting, I could probably still make that meeting. So the other changes I'm good with.
Any other conflicts?
I'm good with both days.
I might be flying to San Diego that day,
On
The
the
15th?
but, I mean, if it was in the morning, then I could probably make it. I mean, it's, my daughter's graduation, I think, is the 17th.
Okay, well, I have a similar conflict. I will be in Mississippi on the 15th. I've got to fly out on the 13th.
Can we do a different day other than Wednesday?
Or we can have a long agenda on the 29th. It's the board's discretion.
Well, right now, the only person that would be absent is our president, right?
We can't have a meeting without me.
We got a vice president over here.
Oh, see how quickly you forget.
What are the items on the?
You forgot, she grabbed your gavel because you were
The
late
vehicle
today.
fleet lease, the
She's
enterprise
chomping.
lease would be on the 15th. We have a personnel matter that would be on the 15th agenda. We have, I believe those are the only two off the top of my head right now. And then again, on the second meeting would be a longer budget presentation.
Because of
What
the
if,
budget.
what if we just did the 22nd and the 29th?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here for the 22nd either, but that's not a big deal.
And I'd have to move an appointment. I have an 11 a.m. appointment on the 15th, so I have a little bit of a conflict there too, but I think the only person there's only one of us with a conflict on the 15th and the 22nd.
Yes.
He's not gonna be here either meeting. So I propose we move it to the 22nd.
We could just stick to the original plan was just to have the meeting, that's the regularly scheduled meeting on the 22nd. And we can, it might be a longer agenda, but we can just stick with that plan if the board would prefer.
If on the 29th, could we make it, we come in a lot earlier also? Maybe at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, and this goes back to what I,
Yeah,
We can't really bounce our meeting times around.
I
The
know,
public
but if we
doesn't like that.
cancel the one and only meet once and started at 9, 10, 11, give us a couple hours in the beginning of the meeting instead of staying till 7 o'clock. That's what I would prefer.
Is there a problem with having split it into 2 different days? See, I have a full-time job and I don't wanna have to take a day off that job to come here. If we split it up into 2 days, yeah. If we split it up into 2 days, it'd just be probably a 3 or 4 hour
I think it
meeting.
was 2 days as well, so.
Okay.
So your preference would be to have one meeting on the 29th?
No,
and
2
one-
meetings, the
Okay.
22nd and the 29th,
Okay.
1 PM in both of them.
I could do that.
We could do that. One of the agenda items is somewhat time sensitive, so the 15th was staff's preference. But we can push it to the, we can adapt.
Let's get back to the 15th. I mean, if it is, it can be a short meeting. I mean, I could probably attend it and then I'll fly out later in the day.
Mhm.
And you have an appointment at 11. I just suggested we do it early so I can make the IRWM. Me missing an IRWM meeting is not gonna be, the end all. So the 15th, I'm okay if we wanna go back to that and keep it at 1 or earlier for you, Jeff. But we have to work around your 11, and you would be here, Russ, right?
On the 15th? No.
Oh,
Yeah, but
Nor-
Russ isn't
nor-
gonna be here either one
Nor
of them
nor the
anyway.
22nd.
Bertha's got all kinds of time, she's got even nothing to say on
the
anything.
15th is time sensitive, but it could be a shorter meeting.
It could be,
So
yes,
we
depending
do
on how
9
long,
o'clock on
I
the
think,
15th, Or 8 o'clock, so that way you can make your 11 o'clock and.
well, yeah, but we do 8 o'clock and I have to be on the road at
Just get up at
6:30
4.
in the morning.
There's a cut.
I do that all the time. One time.
Is 9 AM on the 15th? But
I'll
you just
make
said,
myself available, however you guys want.
but you just said that staff preferred it on the 15th, but it's okay for the 22nd?
yeah, if we're gonna push it to the end of the month, it might make sense just to do one longer meeting.
All right,
Okay.
fine by me.
Okay, somebody make.
We're making this one a
decision.
longer meeting by,
Decide, President.
Well, that's, you know, I'm contributing to the problem to a certain extent, so, I mean, I want to,
I'm okay for the 15th at 9 a.m. for a short meeting, maybe an hour.
So a special meeting on the 15th
Maybe do
at
the time
9,
sensitive first, do the
and
closed
then,
session first,
and then
and you could leave.
the budget meeting on the 29th.
22nd or 29th.
if it's a budget meeting, there's a good chance I'll be absent for that as well.
Unforeseen circumstances.
okay, so as I'm hearing this, you're going to redo the time on the 9th to 9 o'clock, is that correct?
On the 15th.
15th.
Excuse me, 15th,
to
yeah.
9 o'clock.
Okay,
So you're talking about 3 meetings or
Just try
2?
not to
Two.
have
No,
more-
just 2
2 hour
meetings.
Okay.
No, we'll knock it out as quickly as we can. And then the second meeting, board's discretion, whether we do it on the 22nd or the 29th. It made sense to us, since we're meeting that week before, that we then have an additional week in between meetings. And it also gives the finance committee additional time, because the finance committee budget presentation is on the 21st. And so it gives the finance committee a week rather than just a day to review the budget prior to the board meeting if we do it on the 29th.
So 15th and the 29th.
9 a.m. on the 15th and 1 p.m. on the 29th.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
okay,
Got it, Rebecca?
okay, so we can just do this by voice, just,
all we're doing is giving them direction.
Yeah.
Direction to
Okay,
staff, yeah.
good. All right.
Sounds good. The second item, or the second issue on the board meetings is the time of the regularly scheduled board meetings. And I think I'll turn that one over to Director Underhill. Staff's essentially
Consent,
agnostic on that issue. It's the board's discretion.
And I've talked to staff and I've talked to our GM, and they're amenable with my suggestion, whatever way the board wants to go. Since I joined the board in 2001, and Jeff can attest to this, we've been meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning for years. And so it came up in July and August of 2017, because of our attendance at the Groundwater Sustainability Task Force, that we needed to change our meeting time to 1 o'clock so that our president could sit and represent CCWD. And I don't know if everyone has heard this, but Russ is no longer,
it's still continuing for some,
Peter will represent CCWD.
no. No,
So that item is, those are two separate roles. President Thomas is a member of the JPA, for the groundwater sustainability basin. And the plan is to have Supervisor Mills take
Right.
that position, but I don't believe the county has taken action on that yet. So currently, President Thomas is still on the board of that JPA until we hear different from the county.
Okay, all right. So he will be moving out of the position, right? At some point, we think.
Some reasonably, you can make that reasonable assumption, but it's up to the Board of Supervisors. They first of all need to agree with our recommendation to select Supervisor Mills or make another recommendation. So, but as I understand your proposal or the reason for wanting to move back is because in the winter months. So, I mean, if we can agree to just leave it at 1 o'clock until either one or the other event takes place, I get replaced, or the winter sets in.
Okay, because, and this goes back to, we all experienced the hardest winter that we've had in 30 years. Okay, and we were driving, and all of us were driving at nighttime, coming down 49 was extremely dangerous. Because these cars, this is a state highway, and these cars have no mercy. And I understand that we all are getting out there every day, and we're driving and we're taking a chance, but we're just adding to the problem by driving at nighttime. So that what we could do would be to change it to 9. Why don't we do when daylight savings time? But then that would make it a little confusing. I just, you know, I'm for changing the meeting back to 9 o'clock in the morning. And as I say, I'm not the only one who has to drive in those conditions, and,
You don't think in the morning it would be worse than the evening?
no, because, you know, think in terms of the fact that you are starting your day, and a lot of us are starting our day, right? We're brighter, we're more,
Yeah, not as tired.
Not
So
as
it's not
tired.
so much the tourist traffic in the evening
it
coming home?
it can be tourists, but it can be regular commuters. Because we were talking about it on 49, we were talking it even on 12.
On the
People,
way home in the afternoon, you have both, versus in
Right.
the morning, perhaps you only have the locals. Well, I don't care either way. I kind of like the idea of 9 a.m. for myself, unless we're staying here till 1 and 2 o'clock, then I've lost my whole day at work. But, you know, I don't mind, because then I could stay at work later. But
Okay.
Well, currently it works better for me at 1 o'clock, but I'll do whatever. I mean, I can, coming to the meetings in the morning, because I still have to get my crew to do something while I'm here. And the meetings did last much, much longer back when they were at 9 o'clock. But then, I mean, for me, the 1 o'clock works fine, but I'll do whatever the board decides. It's just, the current structure is better for me, but I'll figure it out. I did it for a long time the other way.
Right.
But I'm definitely, my crew is more productive when I'm there with them in the morning.
Well, I'm with Jeff on this currently. I'd rather keep them at 1 o'clock. It's better for me with a job. But I'm retiring from that job in the end of June. Thank goodness. So I like Russ's idea of punting this through the, wait for the summer and make a decision at the end of the summer when we actually would be driving at night, and this would become the problem again. So before winter sets in and daylight savings time is changed back over, sometime before then, but then again, I want to be flexible and work with the board and do what's necessary. But it sounds like it's driving at night is the problem, and I have no problem with moving it back to 9 for that purpose.
Just,
well, you know, and I'm a team player, and I'll go along with the board, but I just needed to, you know, make that point,
we
and point it
understand.
out to everybody.
and we're all sympathetic and recognize it. Just for the sake of discussion, can we have a policy statement that we follow the daylight savings time regimen or that schedule, so that when
What does that mean?
well, just for the winter months, when maybe you and are less productive, we go to a 9 o'clock meeting, and during the daylight savings time, when you and I like to get out early with our crews and stuff, that we go at 1 o'clock.
I mean, I think that's a good compromise, I'm fine. It's just a matter of the public eventually, you know, that's the kind of thing that I can see the grand jury getting on our rear end about not having a set meeting, so, you know, but the public does want to know when they can come and see us and get before us, and it's one of those perception things. That's the only impediment to that, I think, and it may never, they may never bring it up, but I can see it being, you know, it's like, well, hey, when do you guys have your meetings? Is it 9 o'clock, 1 o'clock?
Well,
Showed up.
Can we have a
9 o'clock in the winter, 1 o'clock and I don't think it affects that many people. We're looking at how many public members are here today, and are usually here.
If we did a very sustained public statement on the
Outreach.
website, newspaper statements and stuff, just say, this is what you can expect in the future from CCWD, because we changed the time and it didn't seem to affect anybody when we went from 9 to 1.
It didn't bring in more people, and we didn't lose customers, I don't think either.
Okay. Well,
You gotta save up for that driverless car. I know I am. For a couple reasons.
he can walk to work, though.
Yes.
Yeah,
Skateboard.
I know.
Skateboarding over there.
Right, I ride my horse.
Okay, and I'm fine with that, Russ. I just wanted, as I say, I just wanted to bring it out, and
Okay, well, can we resolve to discuss this, discuss it further?
Do we want to bring it back, or do we want to go ahead and shift to that schedule? It's completely discretion of the board.
I'm content with that compromise. I think that's a good one.
Okay. Everybody in
I'm good.
agreement? Okay, that's
I'm
the
good giving
direction.
direction today and not having to discuss it anymore.
Okay, that's the direction then.
So we'll do, staff will do some outreach in advance of that time change, so that everybody's well aware of it.
It will be 9 AM, and the spring summer will be
1,
What?
right. I'm just glad I'm not doing nights and weekend meetings anymore. So. I'll take it.
Well, we were going to talk to you about that.
Yeah, that's what we said, daylight savings time will be the flip back
The
and
flip.
forth.
Okay, there was a kind of a subtle criticism in that your comments about our meetings go long on, you're leaving here in the dark, and
Just this year, though.
just this year, yeah.
Just since you've been sitting in
Just
that
since
chair.
I've been here.
Because it
Okay.
Last year, they were much quicker.
All right. I think so. Okay, we have another item here. This is old business, and we have an update on the actions, speaking of the East Side Groundwater Sustainability Agency and JPA.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you. How was Stockton today, Peter? Not bad.
Actually, not a lot of attendance. When I showed up, they're like, okay, we got a quorum, let's go. Yeah, because they actually ended up squeezing another meeting in this month. Mostly because a lot of folks had noted that they would be off the conference during the next meeting scheduled in May. But a lot of things are moving right now, and so this should be a quick presentation today. So I did provide you with some handouts that are basically the schedules, so that you're just aware of kind of how this process is going. Obviously right now in April, we're still working on project management actions, establishing a monitoring network, and then also drafting chapters associated with a lot of the minimum threshold and baselines that are going to go into the plan. But this is the one that's kind of important here right now, because these are the things that are going to be starting to show you the deliverables for the plan. We've received what they call the first bundle of documents to all the groundwater sustainability agencies and their staff. And essentially, staff have been reviewing those internally and punting those around back to the consultant. And the idea was that the groundwater sustainability agencies would get a chance to look at all those documents before they went out for public comment and provide some feedback. So the consultant's kind of punting out chapters here and there. So right now, I'm in the middle of reviewing the water budget and basin scale documentation, and that is due back to the consultant by May 15th. So essentially, they're going to have a public draft starting to go out pretty rapidly here, and they're going to phase those out in June. So what we'll start to see is this groundwater sustainability plan start to actually have chapters that are released to the public and having public comment on those. So yesterday, I went and presented to the Board of Supervisors on this item. It was delayed. Originally, we had intended to go to an earlier meeting. It was a good meeting. Brian Moss gave a presentation to the Board of Supervisors on Sigma. For most of the supervisors there, it's the first time they've really seen anything about it. This was kind of in response to some outreach that we had with county staff and county supervisors, just saying, hey, we're concerned, you know, that at some point this plan is gonna be before your board, you're not gonna be prepared to adopt it, because the way that the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, the Eastside GSA, is structured, the four entities, Calaveras County, CCWD, Rock Creek Water District, and Stanislaus County, the authority all resides with those individual boards in that Groundwater Sustainability Agency. So the hope is that each of those boards is gonna have to, at some point, approve this plan so that it becomes formal and formally accepted by the GSA. So, but overall, I thought the meeting went well. The one thing they did not do was appoint Supervisor Mills as we had recommended to that Joint Powers Authority. So at this time, President Thomas and Walter Ward from Stanislaus County are the appointee and alternate to that Joint Powers Authority for now. So that may come back at a separate time. It was brought up in their presentation. So otherwise, you know, I think we're just continuing to refine certain things. As far as data, we've had quite a few calls with the consultant, finalizing a lot of numbers on what they're calling water budgets for each of the groundwater sustainability agencies. Those budgets won't actually make it into the plan, but they're more for a decision-making process for the entire basin. So,
Peter?
Yeah.
Is there going to be a financial liability to CCWD for any of this groundwater sustainability plan?
You know, that
Forward, or?
yeah, that's a good question. That hasn't been discussed, except for just kind of conceptually. If I had to guess, I would say that there will be an expectation that GSAs will contribute to some sort of administration of the plan going forward. It's a 20-year plan. There may be times where the group needs to meet, maybe at that Joint Powers Authority level, and check in on implementation of that plan. So there probably will be some funding necessary to hold those meetings and continue that work and meet up and continue that ongoing work. One component that probably will require funding from all of the agencies, you know, there's 15 groundwater sustainability agencies, so, would be monitoring. That's one that's been discussed. We've secured some grants, 100% grant for additional wells, but right now CCWD, for instance, does some monitoring. We do what's called California Statewide Groundwater Elevation Monitoring Program. We have a series of about 7 wells, actually take it back, it's 9, that are monitored on a semi-annual basis. And we just, those are through volunteers, and there's also some dedicated wells that USGS dug a while back, and we do spend some money on that. That's about, it's about $4,000 a year for that.
Well, you're getting, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know that much about the groundwater plans and stuff, but how much, if any, water does CCWD pull out of the ground in the area where this plan, you know,
About
is?
that much.
Zero. It's a
Okay,
great
so
question.
we
Not zero.
almost- Because from what I
But-
understand,
It's
the
about
Calaveras
50
doesn't pull out
50 acres.
hardly anything.
Well,
In Wallace?
Wallace Estates. We have one groundwater drinking.
Wallace, everything on that, everything from Valley Springs, there's 35,000 acres. There's a little bit of agriculture, very little. I mean, in proportionate per population, it's literally a drop in the bucket. I mean, there's, what, 9 million acre feet in the western San Joaquin, or however, 900,000, I forget how much, there's a lot.
So, yeah, the annual budget's
The eastern
around
San Joaquin basin.
900,000, yeah.
But it doesn't really matter. It's a state law, and we're required to do it.
Are they going to establish who pays how much based on,
Most likely,
Entities
they
take
won't,
out
because it would
population
be
or
outvoted.
something?
It'd be like us voting against San Diego for something, you know?
and, okay.
Yeah, I believe there will have to be some sort of proportionate measure. One thing that's, you know, not always very popular, but groundwater sustainability agencies do have, it was, when the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act was conceived, was that those groundwater sustainability agencies do have the ability to assess fees. You know, so there's a possibility that you could, you know, ask the landowners to, through either a Prop 26 hearing or others, to contribute a portion per parcel to funding, ongoing monitoring, things like that.
One of the-
But,
This is
you know,
probably-
that's,
Well, probably, it's probably less than that dollar amount that we're pulling out of that basin, because there's a good argument that a lot of the water we pull for Wallace is seepage out of Comanche, because it's so close there anyway. But the other question I have is, because you're guessing that we're
Try not to say that out loud.
I tried,
Yeah,
but
I can
the question, you're guessing on there will be some fees. Can you guess on what those fees might be going forward?
you know, I can't until we get that monitoring network discussed, but we kind of, when I went to a workshop recently, I've actually been to a lot of these meetings recently, we talked a little bit about those costs and them being, you know, basin-wide, you know, a couple $100,000 possibly per year. But there was questions about who's already contributing to that. Like CCWD, like I said, we're already monitoring wells. What about those others that aren't, you know, and so, you know, will they integrate some of that already ongoing monitoring, you know, so is that a contribution too? So that was a discussion, you know, you have, so just keep in mind, you have GSAs that are like literally Linden, like, and then, or Lockford CSD, for instance. I don't know that you would expect them to have to contribute some massive amount of, you know, money, so you have to consider, yeah, I think that there's gonna have to be some consideration of who's taking out what, and how big their ratepayer base and things like that.
Was it mandatory for CCWD to get involved, or it was? Okay. So I'm kind of thinking, what are the benefits do we have to?
The alternative was to have state
State
intervention.
law.
Yeah.
The alternative is to have state
So
intervention.
all water agencies had to be part of a GSM?
Overlying a groundwater basin, or the state would step in and do it themselves.
So that was the purpose of CCWD stepping in. The county eventually joined the Groundwater Sustainability Agency too. You know, so there's a shared role there. Obviously, the county has certain ministerial authorities that are, it's good to have them being a part of that, because we wouldn't want to be stepping in and talking about things like well permitting or land use decisions and things like that. So it is good that the county is involved at some level. But yeah, the alternative was to have the state come in, they would just impose a fee on every groundwater well. And it's the difference between, which I've always sold, you know, yeah, it's terrible if the state comes in and takes over, but it's a curtailment program. There's no planning and trying to fix the problem. It's just saying, okay, we're gonna put a meter on everybody's meter, we're gonna track how much you're using, and if things go bad, we're gonna tell you to curtail. And they're not gonna invest anything in trying to make it better.
How many wells does CCWD have over there?
We have 3 wells in Wallace. One has not been fully completed. So
We use about 50 acre-feet a year in groundwater, and that's, the basin uses about 800,000, 800 or 900,000. So
Hopefully it's proportionate to-
we're a small part of the actual usage. The bigger issue for the county generally is the potential impacts on land use, on well permitting. You know, if there's new development down in that part of the county, their ability to draw groundwater, that's where it becomes a much bigger impact, which is why we wanted the county to be more involved alongside CCWD.
yeah, the larger impacts are gonna be ag. I mean, if there's people that wanna come in and build new wells specifically for large ag projects, they're gonna come up with challenges, showing that they're not making an impact. And so, you know, continuing to stick a domestic well here and there, probably not gonna run into too many issues there, you know, so.
All right, thank you.
Peter, you might explain to Director Cicada what our financial commitment has been so far by the various.
So, it's a $2.2 million planning effort. There's quite a bit that goes into it. You know, that's a lot of technical consultants. And so 75% of that was secured through a grant from Department of Water Resources. The remainder was funded through the agencies. So the East Side Groundwater Sustainability Agency contributed about $39,000 and some change. So just say $40,000. That was split evenly between Stanislaus and Calaveras counties, so that was split further down. So CCW's contribution has been about 9,500 total for the plan. And
Plus your time.
oh yeah, plus my time.
And quite a bit of time. A lot of Peter's time, a lot of President Thomas's time. So that's, I think, the far bigger contribution that CCWD has made over the last 3 years is regular meetings, involvement in the development of the plan. Currently, right now, Peter's spending a lot of time reviewing the chapters, the drafts as they roll out. So that's the far bigger contribution from CCWD is the staff time that's been involved in it.
I think being at the table, part of the development of this is really important anyway.
And all of that time spent will be in kind? Will they even consider that?
I don't know that we'll get credit for that at any point.
But I think it's worth mentioning that the other 15 sustainability areas got credit for the fact that their residents are taxed and have been for years on, I can't remember the name of the vehicle.
Yeah,
but,
there's the Zone 2 fund in San Joaquin County. It was set aside mostly for investigations and things like that associated with groundwater issues. I think the time actually runs out on that. That's one of those that has its sunset date.
Coming, okay.
But I think it originated out of some droughts in the 90s when there was starting to notice some groundwater issues.
So if you look at all the pro rata fees that all these 15 contributed toward the $2.6 million, the 25% of that, and you come down to our east side portion, it's 40,000 versus 11,500 or something on all those other agencies, but they had already, we weren't participating in that, so it was normal for us to pay higher. But to Peter's credit, we had budgeted far more than that for anticipation of our costs associated with all this. So we've been doing well.
Yeah, and originally sorry, I'm going too long here, but originally with the grant, they weren't sure if they would get the disadvantaged community waiver, so that was able to secure another 25% funding above and beyond. Otherwise, it would have been a 50-50, and that would have cost a lot more.
Okay, any other questions of Peter? Okay, thank you very much. All right, we have a general manager's report now.
Okay, a few things to cover. First, some good news. SB 474 that we've been very concerned about, which is the bill that would have significantly impacted our county of origin water rights reservations. That bill has been gutted and amended, so it's no longer an issue at the moment. It will come back, so we expect maybe to see either a bill introduced later in the session that becomes a 2-year bill, or something next year. But that fight's the battle's won, but the war goes on. So we need to continue being vigilant on that front. But at least the initial threat is past. Along those lines, I'll borrow a term from Director Radaman. I think he said it was a meaty discussion at camera last week on this issue. And I won't get into all the weeds of it since it's not on the agenda and it's a moot point at this point, but the question was coordination among the camera agencies in fighting that effort. So the nice thing about the SB 474 going down is that we now have more time to work with with the camera agencies to create a strategy before the next piece of legislation is introduced. So I look forward to that.
Great news.
We already talked about the West Point Town Hall. Now that Damon's back, I'll just mention again that he did a fantastic job of addressing the taste and odor issues. And I don't even think I said a word. I didn't have to address anything. Yeah. So be careful stealing the limelight like that. No, I was more than happy that Damon was the one with all the expertise, and he did a fantastic job presenting it, and I think it went really well. been doing more field visits, so I've spent some time in the Ebbets Pass service area and didn't get to all of it. That one's going to take a few days to
Pretty
cover.
big. Pretty big.
But all the way out to Sheep Ranch and then back to Arnold, wastewater down to Vallecito, and there's a lot in between there. So we still need to spend another day out there, and then also West Point, Wilseyville we hit as well. So continuing the system-wide education, and it's been great. We have a NUMRA meeting on Friday where we plan to talk about some of the Forest Service funding opportunities that we learned about in DC. Tomorrow there's a follow-up meeting to the Highway 4 collaboration effort. A subgroup to talk about, it got moved from Friday to tomorrow, to talk about emergency management coordination and property tax questions. We've restarted the 2x2 effort between CCWD and Utica. This is a separate issue to talk about water supply agreement and the possibility there. And so we're trying to, that was something that started the end of last year, got put on hold because of some transitions. And we want to try to move that process along. So that meeting took place yesterday, and I think it was productive, and we've got a follow-up staff level meeting and then another 2x2s on the calendar already. So we'll keep you posted on that. Lastly, I'll just mention, had the opportunity to meet Josh Pack, the interim, is he interim?
Oh, he's permanent.
Permanent Public Works Director.
Yeah, right.
And talked about a lot of paving issues. I think the positive news for me, we knew the county was working on a new paving policy. We were a little concerned about how that was going to be rolled out and whether we were going to have an opportunity to participate in the development of that. And so I was very pleased to learn from Josh that it's going to be a very public process. They're going to circulate a draft. We'll have an opportunity to comment on it. There'll be a board workshop where they won't take any action. So there'll be a couple of opportunities for us to provide some input on that policy.
Are there other utilities involved with that as well?
Yeah, so it's come up at our quarterly utility coordination meetings.
Okay.
And the way Josh discussed it yesterday, it seemed to me it was going to be very open, transparent. He's going to send out an email blast to all the utilities saying, hey, take a look at this policy and give us 30 days to review it. So that was good news. We'll see what the policy looks like, but at least we'll have an opportunity to be involved in the development of that policy. And so we look forward, I think, Damon and I look forward to establishing a good relationship with Josh. He seemed like a very reasonable counterpart that we should be able to resolve some issues with, and then we look forward to meeting the new CAO as well. I think that's all I had.
Any questions for our GM? Okay, if not, let's go on to our board reports. Bertha, please start.
Okay. Well, winter's over, and we all have just a few patches of snow. We still have some right across the street from me, so it's still cold, and people are still building fires up there. Okay, White Pines Park is getting ready for the tourists. They've opened up the bathrooms. They close them during the winter, and so they're open and we're ready for business. They're planning a great big car show, making sure that they follow all the requirements, because as you know, White Pines is leased by the county, and then there comes the county then has all their requirements on insurance and whatever it is, but we'll have thousands of cars there. So that'll be in the July timeframe, I believe. Other than that, it's pretty quiet up there.
Okay, Director Randall?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, the only thing that I have to talk about here is this letter from Mia O'Connell that really captures, gosh, almost a minute-by-minute recap of our meetings that we had in Washington DC. I don't know how she does that. It's really quite remarkable, but that's all I have to say.
I have nothing to comment.
Oh, but I do.
Good.
Oh, do tell.
Yes, the West Point Town Hall was a meeting that was put together by Jack Monday, and he invited us, so I went. And the sheriff, Rick DeVicilio, was there as well. It was my first ever town hall that I was kind of there as a representative, so needless to say, I was really nervous and scared and afraid about meeting all these people and speaking to them. And as you probably all are aware of, I try and control a lot of stuff. So when I first got there, which was like an hour early, I'm talking with Jack and I'm telling, well, no, it was supposed to be at 5:30 and then the meeting didn't, or at 5, and then the meeting really started at 6, there was networking. So I'm there an hour early. And so I'm trying to tell Jack how I want him, you know, to not introduce me, if you will. I'll just sit over here. And after about 45 minutes, I see Damon and Michael coming in, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. So then I start trying to tell them how it's gonna go down, right? Because I'm just so nervous. Well, when I started the meeting, the gal at the Lions Club, you know, was talking first, and Jack decided to do it his way and pulled kind of a thing on me and says, let's get started with Cindy. I'm like, oh my goodness. And anyhow, so I stood up and,
I think that was her. I don't think she even.
no, Jack looked at me and kind of winked. So I think he kind of had it planned. So anyhow, I introduced myself and introduced both Damon and Michael. And then I chatted briefly about the CAP program and that there was, some more sewer ones left. And then right away, Damon came up and just gave a great presentation. Just really proud of them, and I'm glad they were both there. Now I'm not so nervous about the next time. And like Jack said, he goes, you'll get through the first one, and then you'll be good. But I thought it was kind of funny how he, kind of, I don't want to say threw me under the bus.
But he did.
And then, so that was last Thursday, and then after the meeting, and they, had several people come up and talk to me about the CAP program. So it was a really good event, and the people at West Point are pretty cool. And then also last week was IRWN, and it was the usual business. There was no JPA meeting, but during the regular program, we discussed the DAC involvement. And the Mountain Counties Funding Region has been meeting for quite some time as we're planning to develop the DAC involvement plan. And there's 9 of our IRWMs in the region, and we have $1.3 million to use for the first round of implementation for funding. And because it's such a small amount, it was really hard to figure out what to do. So the group thought, well, let's do a bundled package on fire resilience or mitigation, something along those lines. And so all the one agency was saying, no, we want to break it up and divide it into 9, divvied up between 9 people. And so that's been a real struggle. The T-Stand did introduce 2 plans, one with Portland and one with the Miwok, and that's about where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Okay, just for the record, we did make a change on the as listed arrangement on the bottom of the page for next board meeting. So we will be meeting on May 15th at 9 o'clock, and then on May 29th at 1 o'clock. So that concludes our business here today. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay, I'm getting to work this afternoon as soon as I can go. Okay, good. Jeff, did you say you